If you think this story is intense already, wait until you see where it goes. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and stay with me, because this case is about to twist in ways you won't expect. The street was quiet when Officer Dana Keller arrived. Too quiet for a neighborhood that usually echoed with late-night televisions and humming porch lights. The call had come in just 7 minutes earlier. Infant, unresponsive, unknown injuries. But the dispatcher's tone told her it wasn't going to be a normal welfare check. Not tonight. The small, single-story home at the end of Willow Creek Lane stood in eerie stillness, its curtains drawn, its porch light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive. Dana climbed the steps, already sensing that something inside was terribly wrong. The door swung open before she could knock. A man stood there, gaunt, trembling, clothes wrinkled as if he had slept in them for days. His eyes darted everywhere but her face. It wasn't us, he stammered the moment she stepped inside. We found him like that. Behind him, a woman paced in frantic circles, mumbling to herself. Her hands shook violently, her shirt stained with something she kept trying to wipe away even though the fabric was already soaked. Their panic filled the room like smoke. Dana's partner moved past them and headed toward the back bedroom, following the faint whimpering sound that didn't match the chaos in the living room. When he stopped at the doorway, Dana saw the color drain from his face. The baby lay on the floor beside a toppled crib, barely breathing, his tiny body limp. The room was in disarray, drawers yanked open, sheets torn, objects scattered as though someone had tried to erase the truth but ran out of time. Paramedics rushed in, but Dana's eyes stayed on the couple. Something about the scene felt wrong. Not chaotic from an accident, but arranged, too deliberate, too staged. As the paramedics carried the child out, the woman let out a cry that sounded rehearsed, more like a performance than grief. The man tried to follow them, but Dana stepped into his path. Not yet. I need to know what happened here. He swallowed hard, eyes darting to the woman as if waiting for her permission to speak. She froze, then shook her head, subtle but unmistakable. That was when Dana felt it, the unspoken connection between them, a silent agreement forged long before this night. She scanned the room once more. A fresh dent in the wall, a broken mobile above the crib, a stuffed animal with its fur ripped at the seams. Clues, each one whispering a story the couple didn't want told. Then she noticed it, a faint smear on the doorframe. Not blood, not dirt, something else entirely. A mark that didn't belong where it was. Dana leaned closer. The shape was unmistakable. A handprint. Tiny, frighteningly tiny, and far too high on the wall for an infant to have touched on his own. She turned toward the couple. Who put him there? Neither answered, but before Dana could press further, the radio crackled to life. Officer Keller, be advised, the hospital just called. The child's injuries are severe. They want you back immediately. There's something you need to see. Dana felt a cold wave rush through her. Whatever happened in that house, this was only the beginning. And the truth waiting at the hospital would unravel everything they thought they knew. The hospital hallways always smelled like disinfectant and sleeplessness, but tonight the air felt heavier, as if the entire building knew something terrible had arrived. Officer Dana Keller moved quickly through the corridors, her badge catching the dim fluorescent lights, her mind replaying the tiny handprint on the wall. Something about it didn't sit right. Something about that house didn't sit right. When she pushed through the double doors of the pediatric emergency wing, a nurse motioned her over with urgency. You need to talk to the doctor, she whispered. He's never seen injuries like these. Dana's stomach tightened. Where is he? In here. Dr. Mason Blake stood beside the small hospital bed where the baby now lay hooked to machines, his face pale and drawn. He was a seasoned trauma specialist, the kind who had seen every kind of injury imaginable. Yet tonight, he looked shaken, his hands trembling as he flipped through the chart.
He didn't look up when he spoke. Officer Keller, what you brought in isn't a simple case of neglect. This child didn't fall. This wasn't an accident. Dana stepped closer, bracing herself. Tell me what you found. He took a slow breath. Signs of repeated harm, long-term, multiple healing stages, but the most disturbing injury. He paused, eyes clouding. His spine. Dana's breath caught. She had been prepared for something terrible, but not this. We'll know more after imaging, the doctor continued. But the pattern doesn't match any accidental trauma. This was intentional. A silence stretched between them. The machines beeped steadily, mechanical and cold. Dana finally spoke, her voice low. "Did the couple say anything? Did they mention anyone else in the home?" The doctor shook his head. "Just that they found him unresponsive. But based on what I'm seeing, that's not possible." Before Dana could respond, her radio crackled again. "Keller, we've secured the house. Evidence techs are inside. You're going to want to see this." She turned to leave, but the doctor caught her arm. "Officer, whoever harmed this child did it over time. Carefully, quietly. This wasn't a moment of loss of control." He held her gaze. This was a pattern. Dana walked out of the hospital with a slow, deliberate pace. The night air outside felt colder, sharper, almost hostile. Her car door groaned as she opened it, the metal echoing through the parking lot. She couldn't stop thinking about the couple's strange behavior, their rehearsed panic, their synchronized silence, and that tiny handprint too high on the wall. By the time she reached Willow Creek Lane again, multiple squad cars had surrounded the home. Yellow tape wrapped around the yard like a warning the house itself wanted to give. Inside, forensic lights illuminated every corner, exposing truths the darkness had tried to hide. Detective Morales stepped out of the hallway as she entered. His expression was grim. "Keller, we found something." He motioned her to follow. They walked to the kitchen, and that's when she saw it. A notebook, small, worn, partially hidden behind the refrigerator. Morales handed it to her with gloved hands. "Found it stuffed back there. You might want to read the last few pages." Dana flipped it open. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, almost frantic, each line filled with short, desperate entries. But one page stood out, the ink darker, fresher. A single sentence. "I can't let anyone know what really happened. Not even her." Dana's heart dropped. Her? The man had been protecting someone, lying for someone? And it wasn't clear, not yet, whether the woman in the house knew that. But the next line made her blood run cold. "If they find out about the basement, it's over." Dana lifted her eyes toward Morales. "The basement?" she repeated. Morales exhaled, the tension leaving his shoulders in a slow, uneasy wave. "Keller, there's something else." He reached into an evidence box and pulled out a small metal key. "We found this taped under their bed. The door to the basement was locked from the outside." Dana stared at the key, a sickening realization slowly tightening around her. If the notebook was right, if the basement had been locked, then the truth of what happened to that baby wasn't upstairs where they had been looking. It was waiting for them, below the house, hidden, dark, and locked away on purpose. The key felt heavier than metal, as if it carried the weight of everything that had been hidden in that house for too long. Officer Dana Keller held it in her fingers, the cold surface pulsing with dread. Morales stood beside her as they made their way to the back of the house, where a narrow door waited, like a secret trying to stay buried.
The door was plain, almost forgettable, with peeling white paint and a rusted handle. But the lock was new, too new for a house this aged and worn. Dana slid the key in. It turned smoothly, without hesitation, without struggle, as if it had been used many times before. The door creaked open. A wave of stale air drifted out, thick with dust, and the faint smell of something sour that clung to the walls. The staircase descended into near darkness, each step groaning beneath the weight of silence. "Lights," Morales called out. A forensic tech switched on a portable lamp, its beam slicing through the shadows. What the light revealed wasn't a normal basement. Far from it. Against one wall stood a crib, smaller than the one upstairs, older, with bars patched together. A thin blanket lay crumpled inside, untouched but clearly used. Toys sat scattered across the floor, but not the kind a baby would play with. These were broken, stripped of parts, missing pieces. There were no soft colors or cheerful designs. Everything was muted, worn, and unsettlingly out of place. Dana's chest tightened. "Why would they keep a crib down here?" she whispered. Morales didn't answer. He was staring at another corner of the room. A video camera, mounted on a tripod, pointed directly at the crib. Dana felt the ground shift under her feet. "Please tell me it's not recording." Morales examined it. Memory cards inside. A tech carefully removed the card and handed it off to evidence containment. The room seemed to pulse with a horrible truth, one that they still didn't fully understand. Yet the most disturbing discovery wasn't the crib or the camera. It was the wall. Near the far end of the basement, faint lines were scratched into the concrete, dozens of them, some short, some long, as if someone had been marking time, counting days, hours, or moments in a space no one should ever have been left in. Dana ran her fingers lightly over the marks. "These aren't adult-sized." Morales nodded grimly. "They're small, too small." A chilling realization crept through Dana. This basement wasn't just a storage space. It wasn't an accident. It was used, regularly. Footsteps echoed above them, fast, frantic. A uniformed officer leaned down the staircase. "Keller, we've got developments." Dana and Morales hurried upstairs. The officer held a printed statement. Shaky handwriting matched the notebook from earlier. "It's from the woman. She finally agreed to talk." Dana scanned the first few lines. "She says she didn't hurt the baby. She claims she tried to stop it." Dana's eyes lifted from the page. "Stop what? The abuse?" "No," the officer replied. "She says it wasn't the man who did it." Dana froze. Morales straightened. "Then who is she blaming?" he asked slowly. The officer swallowed, his expression tense. "She says the man was trying to protect the baby, that he kept the child downstairs because he didn't trust her, because he thought she'd lose control." Dana felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "She's accusing herself?" The officer shook his head. "No, she says there's someone else, someone they both know, someone who had access to the house." Dana stared at him, heart pounding. "Who?" The officer handed her the final page of the statement.
A name neither Dana nor Morales expected. A name that didn't belong in the house that night. A name of someone who should have protected the baby more than anyone. A family member. Someone who had vanished right after the child was taken to the hospital. Morales whispered the conclusion neither of them wanted to accept. They weren't protecting each other. They were protecting them. Dana exhaled slowly, the truth settling over her like an icy fog. The couple wasn't innocent, but they weren't the whole story either. The real threat, the person responsible for the child's long-term suffering, was still out there. And now that the police were closing in, that person knew it. The case wasn't over, not even close. And for all the horror uncovered already, the most disturbing part of the investigation was only just beginning. If you think this story ended here, you have no idea what's coming next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when the real suspect is finally found.